popular demand. This is the Turnbucklepad podcast on YouTube.com. Respect wrestling or get out. On to a fun note, and fans, this is part of wrestling history. Ryan, do you remember before the internet really got big and the Attitude Era hit, and if you had fun watching wrestling on TV, you had almost 5 out of 7 days of wrestling?
All right, let me see if I can name it. All right.
All right.
So we had Monday Night Raw.
Right.
We had Nitro.
Right.
We had SmackDown.
Right.
We had Thunder.
Okay.
And we had Velocity or Shotgun Saturday Night, right?
Both of them.
Yep.
And then WCW had all their side ones too, like WCW Worldwide.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it was cool. Hey, people always say to me, "Hey, what made you love wrestling?" My grandpa died when I was 4 years old, and my grandma was alone. She lived out on her own out in the county and in the city where we live. And I would go to her house because she loved company. She just didn't care what you did. She just loved having someone over.
Right.
I would sleep over at her house on Friday night, and on Saturday I'd get up and I would watch world-class championship wrestling from Texas on air at like 8 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, yeah.
Then I'd watch NWA present WCW.
Right.
Before the NWA tag was gone. Then I watched WWF Saturday Morning Superstars.
I remember those days.
Then I watched Lobster Man present championship wrestling from the East Coast, which was literally like, it was like an indie promotion, but they used a lot of like washed up talent. They like used like, the Iron Sheik may have been there, and In Between, and like, guys that come and go. It was kind of like a lot of the washed up guys from AWA ended up there and stuff. So. Right. But yeah, I watched 4 hours straight of wrestling at her house. She just loved to have me around, and my mom wasn't there complaining much to do with TV, so that's how I fell in love with it.
Same here. That's one thing I grew up watching and sticking with. My mom and dad watched WrestleMania 4 the day I was born in the hospital room, and I had an uncle pass away in his sleep while watching the pilot of SmackDown. So I'm like, man, if I ever go out, I want to go out like that, peaceful and watching my favorite show.
Yeah, that's WrestleMania 4 with the tournament. Yeah, that was awesome. And it was wow. But then you know what? We have memories like that. And these kids nowadays, it's so funny. You show like a wrestler. Who's this? I don't know. What's Prosupps? And well, who's this? I don't know. That's Andre the Giant. It's like
right.
It's funny. Like they never grew up with those guys. And I feel bad for the kids nowadays because you're looking up to a bunch of guys that. Like, wrestling doesn't mean what it did to us as it does to them. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, they weren't around. They've been spoiled with it.
The whole sports entertainment thing is completely exposed. They don't want you to call it pro wrestling. It's sports entertainment. And when we watched it, they were very protective of it. When you saw it, like I remember watching, Miss Elizabeth be knocked out by Macho Man when the Twin Towers threw him over the top rope. And I'm like, oh my God, Miss Elizabeth being stretched out. What the heck? And then, the Mega Powers broke up the WrestleMania 5. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What's happening? You were like terrified. You didn't want anything to happen anymore,
Yeah, it had that mystique to it. What made it special rung out loud, and it wasn't exposed.
Do you remember watching the Royal Rumble and thinking, I wonder if Bushwhacker Luke's going to win?
I remember thinking Barry Horowitz was going to win.
Right. You look at these guys and are like, wow, he's got a legitimate shot to win this thing. Then you realize, like as you get older, you're like, oh my God, I was rooting for the Mountain Dew. He would never have won the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
It would never have let him win the Royal Rumble.
One of the Nasty Boys, maybe.
Yeah, right.
Brian Knobbs is looking pretty promising.
Yeah, like Brian Knobbs is down to the last 7 guys. You're like, oh, what if the Nasty Boy wins? If he wins the WWF Championship.
Yeah, even with their shock factors. Like, I remember the first 2 scariest things I ever saw in wrestling was when Warrior got locked in the casket. And then
they were drilling holes in it so he could breathe.
And he was supposedly lifeless in there, but they sold it really well. And it had everybody freaking out. Then you had it when Macho Man's snake bit, Jake the Snake's cobra bit Macho Man.
Yep, and Rowdy Piper trying to pull him out of the ropes, and they kept put the little sensor thing over over it because they didn't want anyone to show like the, you know. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. That's when wrestling was a lot of fun. Even back then, we had a wrestler who walked around with a cattle prod to the ring. Now it's a foreign object, you know?
A mountie.
Yeah.
How about this? You had a prison guard that beat people up. Can you
Yeah.
imagine that today?
And then you had the criminal come out, and then he'd beat up the prison guard.
Yeah. And then I was just watching, I was just talking to my safety partner about this. I was looking at Jesse Ventura, and Jesse Ventura says, hey, McMahon, the Twin Towers, big boss man on a team. This is Hakeem from the deepest, darkest parts of Africa. And he is, Jesse. Well, isn't he the natural enemy of the prison guard being black?
Whoa.
And I said, how the hell did they get that past anything back then?
Yeah.
There was, I mean, I was dying. Then he goes, you know, when you come from the ghetto, you've got to be able to fight. Bad News Brown knows how to fight. He goes, well, I'm sure you do, Jesse. Well, Vince, what do you know about that? You come from Connecticut. I mean, you're telling the black wrestler he comes from the ghetto. Like, I mean, you could never get away with that. But, like, I thought that was okay.
Yeah. We had a lot of good times back then. And I think if fans want to get a good education and they're going to do their homework, go back to like the 70s, 60s, and then forward.
Yep. Absolutely. And, you know, people have ripped on me a lot. And, you know, I remember Colt Cabana called me a lazy heel because I hit him and are you going to do anything? And I go, no. And I don't have to. I said, we can build a storyline. I don't feel like that having a bump or anything. And people like looked at me like, oh my God, you know, Colt Cabana. I'm like, we're both indie wrestlers. I remember when we were both underneath like pantyhose for Rock and Randy. We were called the Goon Squad. You know, me and CM Punk, Jay Bradley. You know, and you get these kids nowadays that have this amazing work rate. Yeah, I can't have an amazing work rate because I'm too busy working a real job, going home, taking care of my responsibilities at home, and then going to the gym for an hour and a half at night. Where most guys won't go to the gym. They'll just study their Ring of Honor tape, you know, and I'm putting the time into the gym so that I can at least look like a wrestler.
Yeah.
So I always sacrifice my work rate for my look, so I kind of get Lex Luger syndrome.
I always thought that someone who really wanted the business would do their homework and they'd soak up and take in everything they could find in every possible way. That's what I thought, at least. And then as the business got exposed, you started seeing these people that shouldn't be. You start thinking to yourself, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah, we, you know, and I've been accused of beating up, you know, guys that don't look like they look like the wrestling business. But, you know, you remember in the 80s and 70s and stuff when guys like Ole Anderson and stuff, and they would stretch guys like that to, like, make them, like, basically quit the business. Like, you don't belong here, kid. Yeah, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I just got done reading Chris Jericho's book, A Lion's Tale, and he talked about how Keith Hart came in and they stretched him and they flexed him to the point where they wanted to cry and their teeth were, you know, cracking against one another. And they said if you stuck around and came back after that, we know you're serious.
Now listen to that. Keith Hart beat them up that bad.
Yeah.
And yet they paid Keith Hart for training, Mike.
Yeah.
They paid him to get beat up.
Yeah.
Just like the Minnesota. Could you imagine the class in Minnesota when those guys were all training? Guys like Road Warrior Animal and Hawk and Barry Darsow went on to become Demolition Smash and Nikita Koloff. And all these guys are in the same wrestling ring training. I mean, they're all monsters and slamming each other, not knowing what they're doing. And then, you know, they go on to be some of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And the guys of today, like, you know, they put me in a match one time, and me and my partner against, what was their name, from PCW. They still work around here. Matt Creed and Joe Heisman. I think they were called Youth Gone Wild or something.
Okay.
And I looked at the kid, and he goes, we're going to do this, 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 and this. I go, no, we're not. I said, you're 140 pounds, your partner's 160 pounds, and he has a little belly on him. You guys aren't going to do anything. You can try to drop kick me like a dozen times, but I might bump after that. And they looked at each other, and one of them didn't listen, and I think the living daylights out of the Heisman kid to the point where, I mean, like, I was inadvertently tagged out by my partner because I was putting a beat on him. And when he got back there, they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm stretching the hell out. I don't want you in the business. If you're, first of all, you guys have been in the business 2 or 3 years, you wrestle once a month. I've been in the business at the time 13, 14 years, and I look like a wrestler. At the time, I was 285 pounds. I weighed more than both of them put together.
I can see where you might find it insulting.
I mean, it's like being a doctor and then showing up to work and you have your stethoscope and you have your ear thing to look at ears and you got all this other equipment and apparatus, and then you see another doctor walk in and he's got like a t-shirt on and jeans, and it's like, all right, let's go to work. And he's looking at his fingers after he's potato chips.
Right.
What? You're not here to do a surgery. What are you doing? You know, if you're hired to be a garbage man and you have to wear a city of fill in the blank, uniform, you got to ride on the back of the truck and throw garbage in there. Would you show up wearing, a baseball jersey and cleats and, I mean, no,
No.
That's not how you're supposed to show up for work. Then why, if you're a wrestler, would you show up to work looking like anything but a wrestler?
That's very true. That's very true, because some people don't. And let me ask you a question, too, while I got you here. People using other people's finishers in the indies. I find this rather annoying. Because how many code breakers do you want to see in one show?
Back in the days, they used to say in the locker room, like, is anyone using this move? Nope. Okay, we can use that. Is anyone using this finish? No. But you watch Ring of Honor, or you watch one of these promotions, I mean, don't get me wrong, I pick on Ring of Honor, but I think there's a lot of great talent. Let me say that. You watch some of these indies nowadays, and you watch a match where you do 50 finishers in the match. It's like playing the old WCW sold out video game for Nintendo 64.
Oh, God, I remember that.
You just hit A, lock up, and do a finisher. Hit A, lock up, do a finisher. You just keep doing finisher after finisher after finisher. And then how do you beat somebody with a small package? I mean, how can you get to a match when someone says, okay, I'm going to do the post breaker, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this? Well, what the hell's left there to do? And that's the first match.
It kills it. It doesn't build up the storyline. Every match, from what I understood of it, because I'm one of those guys who sits there, keeps quiet, and listens. I want to be educated. And the way I looked at it was that every match is part of a big story. And each one has to build up, and each match has to go up another notch in order to get to the main event for it to be very big and explosive. And it's like, I don't know, it's almost like, in pornographic terms, like blowing your load before you go on the first date.
I'm absolutely, and,
Sorry.
That's okay. It's your show. You do what you want. I watched the match last night, actually. It was on WWF Superstars from 1989. And it was Rowdy Piper against the Brooklyn Brawler. Rowdy Piper slides in the ring. The Brooklyn Brawler gives him a couple double axe handles. He slams him, gives him an elbow. He stands up. He takes his cigar from the corner of the ring. He chews the end of it. He throws it at Piper, sits on Piper, and turns his back to him. Piper is looking at the cigar. He wipes the spit off of him. He goes up, taps Brooklyn Brawler on the shoulder, sends him off the rope, gives him a sleeper once, and puts him to sleep. That's the match. It's like 2 minutes long. I mean, him walking to the ring with the bagpipes playing was literally longer than the match. And if you told an indie guy right now, Mike, if you told an indie guy, hey, I want you to go out there and beat this guy in a minute and a half, they would be like, well, I can't do this, and I can't do that, and I can't do this. And what about my finisher? And my mom is here to watch me, and my dad's videotaping. Well, who cares? I thought you would do this. You're being paid to do a job. I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
But then these guys are doing that. I mean, like, everybody's, speaking my language, but everyone's got the cheap and the size and talent. You got to get my shit in,
Yeah. And it's not about telling the story anymore. It's about...
What about my power bomb? Who cares? You don't use it every show, You're not Hulk Hogan. You don't have to use your leg drop every show, Well, what about they have so many goofy moves. Mike, I don't know if they're all called anymore. I'll share with a guy in the locker room. He's like, yeah, I do this. What the hell is that again? Oh, okay. Let's just call it that,
Yeah, I was always thrilled seeing new things, new types of moves, something innovative, something creative, not the same old thing. And you still see some guys out there who could be very creative with bringing something new. But then you still got a lot of guys out there who think taking a move from every single guy out there and put it into his own set qualifies them, and everybody can pick it apart.
I'm going to put something over right now. Anyone that's listening to this podcast right now, and I know there's a ton of people listening, watch Lucha Underground.
Yeah.
Lucha is about to come out. If you want to go back and pretend you're a kid again, and kind of not really worried. I mean, now you still got the video game wrestling mentality. They still do a ton of finishes. That's more to look at the straight. But I think one guy lost a match. He turned into a dragon after he was banished from the temple. And I literally watch it and go, wow, this is cool. It's like watching. I mean, it looks like a TV show. Like, you know, it's produced by Mark Burnett and another guy, so it's kind of got a little bit more of a TV flavor. And I just watch it and I'm like, this is kind of cool. Like all the characters, how they, you know, you take Matt Cross, you know, and everyone's like, oh man, M-Dog 20, Matt Cross, you know, oh my God, he's awesome. Remember when he was on NXT? They put him in a black mask, made him have a beard, and called him Son of Anarchy or Son of Havoc or whatever. They basically turned him into a Son of Anarchy character.
Okay.
I mean, nobody knows he's Matt. I mean, the indie guys do, but like, you know, the internet style does. But everyone else is this white guy in a mask with a beard. That's awesome. That is so cool. And you know why? Because it kind of protects the business. Like, hey, I was that guy that wore the black mask. Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I guess you kind of do look like him. No, really, I am, you know? And it's funny because, you know, back in the days, I didn't know Blue Blazer was Owen Hart.
Neither did I. I didn't know Conan was Max Moon either.
Right. You know, so it's like protecting the business again. I enjoy watching this guy. I enjoy some of the storylines. But the hardcore match that Hero had with the other guy, who looks like a demon, I mean, that was one of the best. I'm not a hardcore wrestling fan, but that was probably one of the best hardcore matches that told a story. At the end of the match, he gets up and Hero sits there looking at him and going, I am the one. I'm your master or whatever. And he goes, can I finally please you, master? And he goes, you please me. I'm like, oh my God, it was all part of the storyline, you know?
Yeah.
When I can be surprised by something, it's like you just said, that's the kind of triggered in my brain. It's like you said, I still want the innovative stuff. I still want to be entertained. You know, the Underground entertains the hell out of it.
I saw one show, and I watched a guy jump off that balcony and do a crossbody on the two other guys, and that was something else, and it was beautifully done.
Yeah, and like the whole fact that they're wrestling in that temple, and it looks like this, like, you know, underground wrestling federation. I mean, it's very cool. And they're using a lot of guys. It's not like they're bringing in a bunch of indie names. You know, they are, but they're hiding them under masks. They're using a lot of the actual Latino talent, and that's awesome. You know.
Yeah. Well, Ryan, we came to the part of our segment where we get to ask you the special question that we ask all our guests.
Oh my God, I wasn't prepared for this, but I'll try to do my best.
That's all we ask. The question is, what advice would you give to somebody new that's in the business or somebody that wants to get into the business?
Take up another hobby like arts or bowling. No, I'm kidding. What would I tell them? First of all, if you want to get into the business, my first suggestion is find a reputable trainer. Find somebody. Don't find someone who your friend told you about. And don't choose your friend just because he's your friend. Find someone who's got some time in the business. Find someone that runs a promotion that you can go to. Do your research. You're going to have to pay this guy. Why wouldn't you do research by him? You know, when you call for a doctor, you don't just take the first doctor that comes up when you Google it. You do a little research, you know. So that's what I would do. I would try to find a reputable trainer. I would try to find somebody, you know. But the main thing right now is I tell this to everybody. People are like, hey, you know, I'm thinking about getting into wrestling. If you can financially do it, just go down to FCW or NXT or whatever. Go to their school. They have that whole Full Sail Academy. WWE is going to get to the point where they've rated all the indies of talent, and when they get to that point, they're just going to turn to their own, what they have currently in the you know, what they currently have in their training program.
Right.
So, and you want to be there. And I always hear the phrase, like, it's easier to take a guy who's never wrestled before and mold him. As long as he's got the tools, you can mold him to any way that you want him to be. And that's true with independent wrestling, especially because it's you know, when you really look at it, he has no bad habits, you know?
Right.
So anybody that's in the business and wants to take their career to the next level, if they, you know, if you can financially afford it, obviously uprooting and going down to Florida is not easy to do, but, you know, go down and start in their basic or beginners program, and, you know, and I don't work for WWE, I'm not trying to push their product because they're paying me to, but
they are top of the mountain.
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you be trained there? It's like, you know, I mean, it's being trained by the company that you want to hire, you know. I'm sure Norman Smiley and Finley and all the guys that are down there. I don't know if he's still with them, but Norman Smiley and a bunch of these guys that are down there training. Don't you want them to get to know your name? It's a lot easier to get booked. It's a lot easier when they're like, oh yeah, that one guy that was here, he had a lot of potential. Let's give him a call.
Yeah, I think they're gonna start using things like this. They're kind of like interviews or video interviews. I think they're gonna start using those as a way to scope people out without having to physically be there to do it. Just not have to go to the state. So they might be viewed like little online resumes. So people gotta learn you can't just wrestle. You gotta learn to talk and act too.
It's funny because I have a really good friend. I'm not gonna outright. He's one of the bigger guys. I'm just like this was. People be like, oh my God, it's awesome. He's been down to NXT probably a dozen times. He's been flown in down there. They've given him a million looks, but unfortunately, he can't talk at the mic. He has a hard time with his promo. And guess what? He's not hired. And if I told you who it was, you'd think I was a liar. But I mean, he literally is one of the best indie workers in the area. He gets booked on almost every show. Honestly, he's probably one of the best I've seen in a long time. And he cannot get hired because he just cannot put a promo.
Let that be the lesson for this segment with Mr. Ryan Kross, fans. If you're going to be a wrestler, it's not one-sided. There are multiple sides to it. Study them all. Study them well. In the meantime, Ryan, it sucks to hear that you're retiring because it's always fun to talk to guys like you and guys who actually get the business and know how it's supposed to be done. It's always sad to see them go, but we want to wish you the best and hope you find everything out that you're looking for.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate being on your show, and can I give myself a few plug here?
Go for it. Go for it.
If you want to find me on Facebook, it's Ryan, Ryan, Kross. If you want to look like a professional wrestler, if you want to be trained to look like one, eat like one, die like one, whatever it takes, get a hold of me. We have the S standard. That's the scientific standard in sports nutrition. And the company of mine, we have a clothing line. All the stuff will be up in the next month and a half here. We have a clothing line going live. We have our dieting, our nutritional program. We do Skype, so we can take a look at you, me and the other trainers that are on there. We take a look at you. We can diet you. Give you anything that you need to help make you look like a professional wrestler or whatever sport you may be into. So get a hold of me, Ryan Kross, RyanKross.
And there you have it, friends. Well, Ryan, in the meantime, we were to say goodbye to you. Fans, this is Mike Stover. This has been my guest, Mr. Ryan Kross. And we thank you for coming on. Ryan, come on back anytime you want.
Thank you for having me, guys. Thanks to all your listeners out there for giving me your time. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. In the meantime, fans, we're out.